Hello friends, Jov here. This is the typical continuation of the test-driven development screencast, where we continue working where we left off in the previous episode. So the agenda of this video is to start working on the UI of the post composer, because right now we only have a screen with a title that says new post or something, and basically we want to start working on that screen and make it functional. So I guess in this video we're gonna focus only on the positive cases, so in order to see when we create a post, see it actually created and displayed in the timeline. And probably in the following episodes we are gonna cover the negative output, like showing errors and those kind of things. So let's see how that's gonna go, where we left in the previous episode, and we can continue here. So here I have in my to-do list written that we are gonna start working on the create post UI, and basically there is another thing that that will naturally come while working on the UI. Basically there is part in the contract of the post catalog that is not covered, that we saw in the previous episode or the previous few episodes. So basically when we create a post for a particular user, and then if we request the posts for that particular user, the newly created post is not there. So that should be part of the contract, and we have to write contract test in order to cover that functionality, which is not yet there. But we didn't have that that sort of demand from the tests before, and that's why it is still missing. I think working on the post UI is gonna force us to fix this functionality, to actually put this functionality in place. So we are gonna fix that along the way. So let's start off by starting with the UI tests of the create post composer, and then see how everything's gonna go. So first of all, I would like to run the UI tests to make sure that at least the tests that are right now there are still working. And I've also made the emulator part of the studio itself, so that I won't be jumping around the windows in the screencast. I hope that's gonna be better. Let's see how that's gonna go. And of course I am thinking of not running all the UI tests for every change from in the post composer, because it's gonna take a little bit more time. So I'm gonna run them from time to time occasionally, but I'm gonna be running only the post composer tests while working on the post composer. So then let's see how that's gonna go. So here we have all the tests that we had so far are running well. Then I can hide also the emulator and go ahead here and start off with the UI test. So basically I think in the production we had post composer package, and also in the tests, and similarly we can create here the new test is gonna be into a post composer package, and it's gonna be create new post screen test, because I think we comply on, at least I'm trying to comply on some naming conventions here. So we have a create post screen, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, create new post screen. And indeed, I think we only have, we have the screen title here. So create new post screen test is gonna be the class name. And let's go ahead and create a new test here. Let me hide the left panel, the navigation panel. So I'll name this create new post. So here it imported because that's how my template is set. When I write test, it creates new test for me, but it's set to use the JUnit 5, and JUnit 5 is not working well in the UI tests. So the first thing, I'm gonna just use the JUnit Jupyter, the org JUnit, which is the JUnit 4, so that these tests are gonna work. And what do I want to do here? So basically I'm using the robot pattern, and I want this to be sort of as a flow test, because similarly to what we've done for the timeline, we created a function that opens the timeline for a particular user, and then that user manipulates with the timeline. Similarly, we want to do the same here for the creating new post. So we want to be able to open the create the post composer for a particular user. That user creates a post, and then in the timeline, when we get back, we are fetching the posts for that particular user again. So the user has to match in between the both screens. So I think that's why I want to. I think it's gonna be easier to start off. So then, of course, right now I don't have completed all the functionality with following friends and like seeing the posts of the friends. So that's why I think let's start with what's easier and what's simpler. So I'm gonna say launch post composer 4, and then I'm gonna pass an email here. So let's say friends.com, and then I also have to pass, in order to be able in my robot to manipulate with the UI components, like I don't know, type text, click on buttons, or even do validations. I need to be able to reference the. I need a reference of the rule, test rule. So I have to pass the test rule there as well. So create new post rule. I'll name it like that. And then once I open the screen, what I want to do is I want to type post, my new post, for example. And then I want to submit it. And then I'll verify that the newly created post is shown. Now, what do I expect to be shown? The post has a timestamp, it has a ID of the user who created it, and the actual content. So I want to see all those information because it's gonna add a little bit more dynamics. So it's nicer when there is a post, when you see who created and when they created the post, and then what's the actual post. So I want to see all those three information. So in that sense, I would verify here that let's say what's the user ID that added this post. And of course, because for the time being, for these tests, I'm using the in-memory user catalog, which implementation has, if we remember here, it cuts off everything before the add and it adds an ID. So it's quite irrelevant at this moment, but I need it in order to match, because when I launch the post composer for this user, what's gonna happen internally, it's gonna create an ID, like it will return back to me a ID of a user as a that it's gonna add that suffix like ID at the end, so it has to match. So that's why if I was calling a real backend, for example, it might be completely different ID, it might be UUID, but because of the setup that I have right now is like that, I'm just gonna use what I have. It's anyway quite irrelevant for this functionality. I just need to have it, like I need to match, and I have to, of course, add clear relation between what's given and what's then the verification. And then I would expect the date, let's say 30th of October 2021 at, let's say, 15:30. So that's gonna be the date that I expect, date and time that I expect to be shown also, and then the actual content, my new post. So this also has to match. So that's what I expect to be present on my screen when I create a post. And I think that's what I want to read. So this is complete test. This is what I want to read. So now let's make this compile actually. So the first thing is I'm gonna come up with this create new post rule, which is gonna be a property here, and it's gonna be a create Android compose rule, and I'm gonna pass the main activity here. And of course, this has to be a rule. Come on. And of course it complains because this thing is private, so let's make it public. So that was the first step, and let's continue making this compile. So first of all, I'm gonna come up with this launch post composer function. So then I have my email. I have my create new post rule. Let's leave the name, leave the types, and then the block. And it will return a robot. So I'm just gonna use the same style that I have for the other UI test. So I just need to come up with a robot for this one. So I'll name it create new post robot. Now let's clean this a little bit. So first of all, I want to move this into another file. And if I try to move it now, it says that I can only move top level declarations. So I'll just move it a little bit outside of the class. So it's outside of the class, so now it's top level, I can move it, but because it is private, I first need to remove the private modifier. So then when I move it, this test, that the create new post screen test, is gonna have access to it. So let's move it. So it's gonna leave into a file named create new post robot, similarly to what we have for the other tests, and it's gonna be in the same source. So if you open the source here in my UI tests, in the post composer, I have the robot, I have the screen test. So let's split the screen and close the left panel. So now the first thing that I want to do is clean this, like add alias for this, because this type is quite too big, I would say. So let's introduce alias for this. So I want it to be, come on, private. And then the name would be main activity rule. Something like that. Now it's way cleaner, this launch post composer 4. And of course I need this class to be here in this file. So the way I'm organizing and structuring this is that I want my robot to be one class that actually does the manipulation with the UI, like typing, like clicking on buttons, those kind of things, and have yet another class that has that does the verification. So I'm just gonna have that split between them, and I need this rule to be in, I need access to this rule in all of them. So I just have to pass it in the constructor. So in that sense, what I need to, first I need this to be a receiver so that I can work with a DSL. And then here, what I'll do is, I'll return my create post robot, but as I said before, I'll need to pass the create new post rule there, and then also apply the block so that I will be able to write DSL style. Add this as a constructor argument, and I'll name this as a just rule. It's gonna be easier. And of course, to be able to access it in the different functions, I'll need this to be a private val. And finally, what I need to do when I launch, because I'm saying launch post composer 4, and as I said before, it's part of the flow. So what I need to do is first I open timeline, and from timeline I open the post composer. So I already have a function that I can leverage here in order to open the timeline, and that's launch timeline 4. Then I'll just pass the email, and here I need to also pass a password, but at this moment it's absolutely irrelevant what's going to be the password. I just need a valid password because launch timeline 4 is actually creating the account, and then the timeline is being opened. So then what I have to do is when I open the timeline, I just click a button that opens the composer. That's all that I need to do. So here just pass some pass. I just need to make sure that I'm passing, like, this password is gonna fulfill the criteria for a password that I have before. And I also need to pass the create new post. I need to pass the rule. And of course, once the timeline is opened, what I have to do is tap on create new post. And it's gonna open my composer, and then I'm gonna return this create new post robot, and from now on I'm free to work with my DSL into like creating another functions and work with like create new functions in the robot and work proceed with the work. So I pressed here a wrong shortcut that opened myself instead of the code. Sorry about that. So here we go. What I can do is create member function. So here is the post content. So let's go ahead here and say rule on node with text or string a node with text new post hint a node with text new post hint perform text input the post content. And now my post hint is not, well, a node with text, let's say post hint, new post hint, and the new post hint is gonna be a rule activity get string. That's how it should work. And I need to create this string for in my string resources because it does not exist at this moment. So I'll say what's on your mind. It sounds a little bit like Facebook. I dislike that, but yeah, I cannot think of anything better. But of course, this is just a string, so it's easy to fix it and change it later. Then let's create a submit function in the robot, and it has to be a member function. So here I'll say rule on node with tag, because it's just gonna be a button that's gonna have a tag. On node with tag submit post, click, and that's gonna be a again rule activity get string or string submit post. And let's create this string too. And then do the verify. So as you can see, I'm just going one by one and generating the things in my robot from my test. So in order to make it compile, because it's a failing test and not compiling is also failing. So here again, I need a block. As I said, I need a receiver here as well. And as I said before, I need another class because I want to split the actual working with the UI, like typing, doing like doing these operations with the UI, and I want to split that with the verification out from the verification. So I need a verification robot here. Create new post verification robot. Yeah. So let's go ahead and create this class so that it will compile. I'll move it out. So I'll need to also return it in order to be able to work with the DSL. And of course, here I'll just return create new post robot, apply the block, and I'll pass here the rule as well. So here is the rule. And what I can do finally is to newly created post is shown. I need a member function in my verification robot, and it's gonna take the user ID, the date time, and the actual post content. I'll put the parameters on separate lines. Let's do the nice formatting. And here, what I have to do is say rule on node with text. Of course, the rule is not visible in the functions. I have to make it as a val. And of course, I'll make it private. Rule on node with text user ID. Assert is displayed. And then I'll do the same for my date time and for my post content. Whew, that was a little bit of writing. It's always like that when coming up with the robot first time. But now my test is compiling, which is great. And now the good thing is that I can run this test and watch it fail and see if it's gonna fail for the right reason. So let's run it. And I'll move now the robot on this side, so that we can see the emulator, but also we are gonna start working on the UI, so we don't need to look at the tests all the time. So as we can see, we are opening the screen, so that the create new post screen was opened, but here the test fails, saying that there is no component that satisfies what's in your mind as a text. So that's good. That's what we expect as a failure. So now let's go ahead and open the create new post screen. So we are going to start working here. But before we start, let's see if we want to commit this. I don't typically like committing a failing test, but because these are UI tests and it's gonna demand a little bit more work to make it work, to make it pass, maybe I can do some intermediate commits, or maybe I can just keep working. And I think you don't mind if we just skip these commits. So it's gonna be less Git work, more UI work. So now we have the screen title here. So what we need here is we need access to the view model. We also need first we need to put this into, let's say, some sort of column, and the column is gonna be modifier is gonna be a modifier fill max size. So the column is gonna take the entire screen. We have the screen title, and below the screen title we can have a we need to have the post composer and a button, but I need the button should be on top of the post composer, not just one after another, so that the post composer, let's say, like, one can type a bigger post and then the button will be always there to submit, something like that. So just let's invest a little bit in front here, put it in a box that's also gonna have a modifier fill max size, and then inside this box I'm gonna have a post composer, and after the post composer I'm gonna have a button. Let's see what's gonna happen on click later. But the floating action button here, I think it should have a let's see how it was done in the timeline, so that we can make it identical. Here we have a Here is the button. So we can similarly do here. What's gonna happen on click? We can also add a modifier to align it. So modifier dot align alignment bottom end. And what else? I think we need to add tag string resource or string submit. Post. And then inside we can use icon. Similar to here. So I need an icon which has a image. So how was it done here? It is image vector. So let's maybe copy paste this and then fix it. Image vector is gonna be, instead of add, done. And the string resource is gonna be again the submit post, same thing. And of course then what's the post composer? The post composer is gonna be a new composable. I'm gonna have it here. Let's make it private initially. And the post composer is gonna be was it material text input, or I don't remember, but I think I have it. We have the same in our sign up screen. Outline text field. So outline text field. The value is gonna be the value or the actual post text, and on value change is gonna be on value change. So I'm gonna take these two here. So I'll have a post text which is gonna be a string. I'm gonna have on value change which is gonna be a lambda. So that's my value, that's my on value change. What I need is also a modifier, which is gonna be a modifier fill max width. And then also I need a text or label, was it? Yeah, label. And the label is gonna be a text with string resource. So that's gonna be the hint basically. R string hint, new post hint. That's what I want. And now I need here to do post composer. I have to put the post text and on value change post text is gonna be it. So what's the post text? I have to remember it here. So private, well, private, it should be post text is gonna be a by remember a mutable state of initial is gonna be an empty string. So let's import the get and the set. And this of course has to be a variable so that I'll be able to reassign when the things are changing, and then on click we have to be able to submit the post. So for now let's run the tests again, the single test, and see why is it going to fail and whether it is going to fail for the right reason. So watch closely in the emulator and see what happens. So we create an account, we type the post, and what happened is so basically now the verification fails. So there is nowhere the post is not being created. So it's not being created because we are not submitting it. So what we need here is we need create post view model to inject it. And when we click this button, what we need to do is call the create post view model and create post with a post text. And then for now, what we usually have to do, like what I normally have to do here is observe the state of this view model, and when I get the state of created, I have to close the screen and go navigate back. So let's maybe do that here as well. So what I'm gonna do is create post view model, post state, observe as state, and that's gonna be my create post state. And now I'm gonna just say when create post state is created, on post created, so I'll just call so what's wrong here? Oh, I need here to say by observe a state, and now when, and the when says it should have other branches too, which are fine for now. I don't care about those, but I need this on post created. So basically I can expose here a lambda that will be called, so on post created. So it's just gonna be literally a callback that I can leverage to close the screen and navigate back. So now if I run, it should not compile because I'm not passing these two. And of course, this is my main activity. Let's close. And what I need here is first I need the view model. So let's create it here. Create post view model by view model. So here I have to pass the create post view model, and also what happens, this is the lambda, what happens when the post is created. I'll just say nav controller navigate up. So it's just gonna get back to my timeline. Let's run. I think I can just close this for now. Right, so now it fails, saying no bean definition. This is what I expect, because now the setup is missing for the coin, for the structure. That's what this is totally expected. So the create post view model is nowhere to be found. So let's do this first in the test here, and then see. So what I need here is setup. The create post view model is gonna be a create post view model, and it takes a post repository, or maybe instead of creating this whole structure, and I need to do that anyway in my module, in my application module, so let's do it here. So I'm gonna say view model is gonna be my create post view model. What does it need? It needs post repository. So post repository is gonna be get, and dispatchers is gonna be get. Now I don't have post repository. Let's create a factory for it. And this post repository takes user data, which is in, well, get, and post catalog, which is also get. The post catalog, I don't have it, so let's add. Oh yeah, I have it. Here it is, post catalog. It has it uses in-memory post catalog, but I don't have user data. Now I'll also add here as a single in-memory user data, and here so this is already a another smell that I don't need to have, because like I can use the in-memory user data, but it has to be sort of an interface, but we still haven't done that because we didn't have evidence for doing it. However, I think I already have here in my to-do list, remember the signed up user. So that's actually part of what I have to do. And I'll just, not to forget, I'll add here fix the in the application module. So now I think the this is gonna work. This is gonna be fine. Let's see if that works. All right. Yeah, so now it is not shown. And it is not shown because let's see, I think part of the problem is that here this thing is not working. The post catalog contract is not completed because the created posts are not added in the collection. So that's sort of why I said at the beginning of this episode that it's gonna force us to work on it. And another problem, I think, is that the users are not matching. So basically the timeline is gonna try to fetch the post for the or no, actually that's not the case. So yeah, anyway, I think now that is the problem. So if I just go ahead and do this in-memory post catalog, so just for the sake of trying, what I'm gonna do is I'll just extract this into variable and then do available posts, add the post. And of course now my available posts is a list. It has to be a mutable list in order to be able to work with it. So mutable list of, in order to be able to add items in there. And let's run. So to mutable list. This is just for the sake of trying. I'm just gonna undo this, but I want to see in the emulator here. I want to see the post being, yeah, and it's not being shown because also I think in my module we are not here, the user ID is not matching. If I add it here manually, the user ID, I think then the timeline is gonna be loading the post for that user, and then the post is being shown as we saw in the emulator. So okay, I'm just gonna undo this here. What I'll do this as part here of my test. So let's close all of these that are irrelevant for now. This is okay. Let's close it. And here is my robot. That's fine. This is my UI. Yeah, what I wanted to do is to undo this here and undo this here, because as I said, it has to be part of a contract. So let's see where we are. Create new post robot, the Screencast application module. Create new post screen. That's fine. Our new code, and the main activity. That's great. And strings. Okay, that's all I wanted to have as a structure. And also here, not to forget, what I'll do, I'll replace the user data in the test here, so that I won't be depending on what's in my application module. So application module here is not gonna have a I'm not gonna be hard coding anything here basically. So in fact, I'll just leave this as it is, but here I'll say replace in-memory user data, or replace user data with in-memory user data yeah. And what I need to do is create a function, and here what I'll do is module is going to be a module single override true, and then I'll say user data. So it will replace load coin modules module. So it will replace the in-memory user data that is in my application module with this one that has that's gonna work with the ID that is relevant for this test. And that's sort of something that like probably might change slightly when I will be, no, maybe not this particular test, but this in-memory user data is gonna have a user data interface that one implementation is going to be my in-memory user data, out of where I'm going to create a contract test, and then I'll have a real implementation that will store to, let's say, shared preferences or something like that. So for now, I'm fine, but that's just how I'm thinking about the future integration of this in-memory user data and the actual user data. This is going to be an interface, then I'll have an implementation that stores to, let's say, shared preferences or to database or to whatever I decide at that moment. Good. So I've done this, not to forget, and now if I run, it won't work again because I've changed the, I reverted the in-memory user catalog. Sorry, post catalog. And if I redo here what I've done and run the test, it should work. So that I offloaded the hard-coded, so again here, to mutable list. So the post is gonna be shown. Yeah, so it is shown, but it fails because it couldn't find the ID and everything. It's not being part of the posts in the timeline. We'll fix that. But yeah, I just have a proof that what are the missing points. So basically we came up to a point where we must write a contract test for the in-memory post catalog in order to continue working with it. But for now I think this test is fine. We can just commit this, because I was thinking whether to make small commits and failing test, or like come to an end and make it work and then make the commit. But obviously it's gonna be too long of an episode if I just now jump into writing the contract test first and then finish this and make it. So it's gonna be too much like working into without commits and also making this episode way too long. So I'll decide to just check this in for now, but I'll ignore this. So this is one or under construction. So this is one technique that you may use while you're working on something that's not done and you still want to make a commit, or like even push the code so the continuous integration system won't fail. This is one technique that you can use. Just ignore, or like in JUnit 5 the annotation is disabled, so that this test is not going to be taken into consideration, and I'll just remove this annotation. We'll continue working on it once I have the contract test in place, once I have the implementation and the behavior of my in-memory post catalog. When I have it done, when I have it working, then I'll uncomment, like I'll remove this ignore annotation here and make this test work. So for now I think it's fine, and this episode is coming to 50 minutes already, so I'm just gonna wrap it up. But before I do that, let's run all the UI tests and make sure that all of them are green except this one, and this one is ignored, so that I can push the code to the continuous integration. So as we can see here, the create new post is ignored, so it's not taken in consideration, and the other tests are running well, which means I didn't break something else. And then I'll run also the micro test to make sure that's also working. And finally, I'll push the code and wrap up this episode so that we can continue in the following episode straight from the contract of the in-memory post catalog. Okay, that's running well. Let's see about the micro tests. They should also work well. I haven't run them for a while, so it takes a little while, but there we go, they're running well. And now what I'll do, I'll just commit this. I'll name this the post composer UI getting into shape. And then I can just push, so the code is there. And yeah, I think that's gonna be it for this episode. So let's just wrap this up. Thank you so much for the time and attention. In the following episode, obviously we have where to continue, and I couldn't wait to catch you there. Take care. Cheers.